Hello Earthlings! So originally I had planned to do a review of the Giver Quartet today, but I postponed that since it is the end of the month. I thought I'd do my wrap-up today and then do the Giver in 2 weeks, because that also leaves me enough time to make that video in the way that I want to. I haven't actually read much this month, and the only book that I read is Since You've Been Gone by Morgan Matson, and I'm gonna give you a full review of that in a minute. I said this was the only book I read this month because apart from that I only read manga, and this is the Kamikaze Kaito Jan series by Arina Tanemura, and I loved it. And because it's manga and I usually read one manga in an hour, I was through these very quickly. So that is all I read last month. I am still reading Quest by Angie Sage from the Septimus Heap series that I'm rereading, and I'm also still reading Air of Fire by Sarah J. Maas. Both of them I will hopefully finish next month, and I hope that I get more reading done next month. On to a review of Since You've Been Gone by Morgan Matson. I will start out by giving a general review without spoilers, and then I will warn you about the spoilers, and then I'm gonna go into what I actually thought of specific plot points, specific character developments, etc, etc. So in general, I have to say I love this book to pieces. I took it everywhere with me because I couldn't put it down. I loved it. I laughed out loud in the train, and I have hardly ever done that. I hardly ever laugh out loud in trains because I think it's absolutely embarrassing and I can usually control myself, but with this book it happened various times. I'm gonna start it by reading you the blurb because I think it gives a good first impression of the story. Emily's best friend Sloane disappears almost without a trace. The only thing left behind is a to-do list. On it, 13 Sloane-inspired tasks that Wallflower Emily wouldn't normally do, and definitely not without her best friend. But what if completing the list could bring Sloane back? Dance until dawn? Sure, why not? Kiss a stranger? Go skinny dipping? Wait. What? Emily only has the summer to check everything off Sloane's list. The question is, what will she find at the end of it? And that is the blurb this book has, and I have to clear up one thing, because to me that sounded a lot like Sloane was gone for good, or it was a case of a missing teenager, which would have been very depressing. But in the first chapter, like almost immediately on the first page, we find out that it's not actually only Sloane missing, but her entire family is gone. Her parents have gone with her. Emily doesn't know where she is, she hasn't heard from her, and her family's gone, their car is gone, and the house is empty, and they've just vanished. So it's not a case of missing teenager, but rather a mystery where has that family gone. They've just left Emily behind. This book was amazing. It was fast-paced, it was easy to read, it was so easy to follow, it was so relatable, and it was a summer read, and you had this whole summer feeling, and even though it's only March, I can't wait for summer now. And I personally was a bit sad because it portrays this American summer with summer jobs and road trips and stuff that I'm never gonna have because I'm German. Our main character Emily is 16 years old, and she's very shy and socially awkward, and she suffers from anxiety a lot, but she's still a very hopeful character. You read the timeline of Emily's summer, and in between you have flashbacks to previous summers with Sloane, and that's pretty good because you can kind of form your own opinion of this character who otherwise is only described by Emily. So if you're looking for something light to read for the summer, this is definitely a summer read. It is happy and it's so funny, it has so many jokes. Wait, you just have to laugh out loud, and I'm just recommending that to you then. Go read this book. Read this book this summer because it's amazing. It's amazing. Full stop. Read it. Read it. Read it. Now I'm gonna go into the spoilery part of my review, so if you have not read this book, leave now and return when you have read the book. Now that all the people who have not read the book are hopefully gone, I'm gonna start off with one thing that I kept thinking throughout the whole book, and that is that Sloane reminded me a lot of Allison from Pretty Little Liars. Allison was the center of a group of friends in Pretty Little Liars, and when she vanishes, this friend group kind of breaks apart. Allison made her friends depend on her. She made them love her. And in the beginning of the book I had the feeling that Sloane made Emily love her, and that Sloane made Emily the way she wanted her to be, and she sculpted her after her design. After about half of the book I realized that Sloane wasn't actually trying to influence Emily, that Sloane loved Emily the way she was, but that she helped her. And now that Sloane is gone, Emily is on her own and she doesn't know how to cope, but she learns it and she becomes independent, and she becomes independent from Sloane. And the fact that she thinks less and less about Sloane the further the book progresses makes it very clear that she becomes independent from her. And the difference to Allison is that while Allison wouldn't have wanted that, I think that Sloane loves that. I think she loves the fact that Emily has become so strong and so independent by the end of this book. So while I hated Sloane in the beginning because I thought that she was making Emily dependent on her, I realized that she wasn't. Sloane was actually pushing Emily to become more self-secure, to become her own person and to become independent. That really made me love Sloane, because at the end of the book you realize that she herself has extreme insecurities. She's alone, or she at least feels alone. And what she did for Emily, she needed someone to do for her. So it is only in the end that you understand Sloane complexly. And I love this about the book, because your idea of who Sloane is and what she's doing and why she's doing what she's doing changes so much over the course of this book, and you're just constantly trying to piece things together to find out what the heck she's doing there. So Gideon and Frank. I was wondering what happened with Gideon, like right from the beginning, right when he was mentioned and when it was clear that things were over. And I have to say I don't understand what went wrong, and this whole thing with Gideon was just, it destroyed my mind. Because on the one hand I wanted her to get with Frank, obviously, but then on the other hand she was so adorable with Gideon. And it was not like a love triangle, because for Emily it was very clear that she was not going to be with Gideon. But then I don't understand why Morgan Matson had to write it so that Gideon is really broken-hearted, and that made it so hard, and I hated it. And oh my god, that was not fair. That was something that I didn't like about the book. Gideon. The whole Gideon thing. Her love story with Frank is amazing, but seriously, how did she not guess that he went to his girlfriend to break up with her? It was so obvious that he wanted her, because, I mean, she kissed him, yes, but he kissed back, and you don't kiss back if you don't want to be kissed. I went Carrie Hope Fletcher right there at that moment where she's just outside of her house and goes like, I know what you're gonna tell me, and then runs away and goes back to her house, and I was just like, use your words! Apart from that, I think that Frank and her are a very nice couple. And I loved how that image of the perfect Frank Porter was deconstructed with every chapter. That was just so good, because no one is perfect as they seem. No one is perfect. Everyone has insecurities. Full stop. Even Frank Porter. What I didn't like was Dawn's reaction on the kiss between Emily and Frank. I love Dawn, but we never find out whether Emily and her become friends again, whether they resolve their issues. And that's something that I don't really like. I loved Emily's family. The way that she described her parents having these weird artistic hobbies over the summer and picking up one thing and then being extremely invested in that one thing and then dropping it for another thing and then something else is the most important thing. That reminds me so much of myself, and I thought it was hilarious that it was so true to the point. In the end, I can only say that I love this book so much, and I'm definitely gonna reread that at some point. I will see you in 2 weeks with my Giver review that I will have worked out by then. So you'll see me with that Giver review thing in 2 weeks' time. Until then, I would love if you could leave me a comment what you thought about this book, and I will talk to you soon. Bye bye!